We're going to be talking about white or Caucasian women.
I was pretty terrible with women. I worked a lot on becoming more attractive in my 20s. And prior to my 20s, actually, I was primarily into Asian women. But in my 20s, I started to really branch out and I was into dating, women that weren't Asian and that included white women. I was a little bit of a late bloomer. My first girlfriend, when I was like 24-ish, she was actually white. So throughout time, I started to date more white girls as I worked on my attractiveness and just worked on my personal development. But eventually, I started to think about why am I focusing exclusively on non-Asian women, including white women? Like, what was driving that? And there's a lot of thoughts I do want to share on today's video and podcast with you all.
Well, and before we move on to, I'll kind of play a little bit of host here. Maybe we can also talk about how, because you were dating, I guess most of us as Asian men, we naturally were around other Asians growing up.
Hmm.
Well, at least us here in Southern California were. I know that
A lot. Yeah.
maybe people watching from other states that didn't grow up around a lot of Asians. Jeremy and I, we grew up here around Orange County, LA. There were a lot of other Asian Americans, and so we were surrounded by it. So I think that influenced the kind of people that we were with, the kind of women that we saw and we were
Mhm.
around, our cliques, our groups, growing up in junior high, high school, middle school.
Yeah.
And so you probably naturally dated a lot of Asian women, right?
Yeah, I was definitely interested. Like, I didn't date as much in high school because I was a typical Asian guy who was studying all the time, had strict parents, but I mean, I was just solely into Asian women, like in middle school and high school, even like early part of college, because actually the high school I went to, the middle school I went to, it was around 70 to 80% Asian. So naturally, that kind of shaped my initial tastes.
Yeah. And I think maybe now I'm just thinking about it, something that probably would interest, at least for me, if I were just starting out. You just mentioned at 24 years old, you had your first white girlfriend. I mean, how did you? I think a lot of people would be interested. How did you make that kind of leap, jump, switch, whatever you want to call it?
Hmm.
Was it just by accident? Was she like in your social circle, or?
Yeah, actually, I met her. She was sitting on a bench in the mall, and she just caught my eye, and I went up and talked to her. So, that's one of the cases we're just approaching is worked out for me. But, actually, come to think of it, what you just said reminded me of when I actually started to really broaden my horizons of women that I want to date. It actually started I think I was 22. I had an internship with a dating company, and the instructors were Caucasian, they were white. And not that they were imprinting anything on me, but one time we actually went to Scottsdale to, do the whole like have a dating coach take you out and like show you the ropes, right? And Scottsdale, for anyone that's been there, it's pretty white. So all the attractive women at the clubs, there was like I think I was like probably like the only Asian person there that I saw during my entire time there, like the 3 days I was there. So all the attractive women there were primarily either Hispanic, but majority were white, right? And I think something just like flipped in my head, like, oh, there's a lot more attractive women who are not only Asian, right? And because I saw so many like hot blondes and brunettes, I guess that kind of just influenced me, right? And then I start to think like, I didn't consciously think it, but LA is pretty diverse. So from then on, I think I was just more curious about dating outside my race.
Mm.
I still found Asian women attractive. I was still going to like the Asian clubs in LA and all that good stuff. But from then on, I think that's kind of what started my interest in different races.
Yeah, interesting. I didn't know that about you, man. That it started in Scottsdale,
Yeah, I mean,
Arizona.
it literally just reminded me of that. I was like, oh yeah, that probably was like a little bit of a formative weekend in
Yeah,
terms of like pushing me towards that.
because isn't Scottsdale, Arizona? I mean, Arizona University is known as like one of the hottest,
The
the most
party.
beautiful, hottest girls. It was rated in like some magazine, I think way back. I think I saw.
Probably, but there's definitely a lot of white girls there, and I'm sure there were a fair amount of like young professionals and college women at the bars on the weekend that I
Yeah,
went. So, yeah, I think that kind of plays a role, and that was kind of, I guess, maybe the catalyst.
yeah. And I mean, I'm also going to comment on my story in just a bit. But before we move on, um, I mean, do you mind commenting on? I think for some of the viewers out there, they might say, well, there are also a bunch of other races out there. I mean, we're
Hmm.
in Southern California. There's Hispanic, there are African American, there are Indian.
Hmm.
Like, how come? I mean, me as being devil, how can you even say, well, I noticed these girls too, because, you know.
Yeah, just watch. I'm gonna get flamed in the comments.
You're going to get canceled so
Yeah,
hard right now.
this is why he's asking the questions, because he's making me
We're
tell
going to
my
make this
story.
so enjoyable for you
It's all
guys.
focused on me and not on him. I'm gonna be asking the questions soon. So okay, yeah. So
That's where we're going to click off the video. Tune in next time.
yeah. So on that point, I totally get what you're asking. It kind of goes into like, this is a thing that we notice actually with Asian guys, and we're also guilty of it when we were younger in our 20s primarily. But it's like, why do Asian guys have such a fixation on white girls, right? I mean, I'll be dead honest. Like the most popular search term leading to one of my websites when I did a personal development brand for Asian guys was AMWF, and AMWF, adult content. True story, right? But that was a question that if you just look at YouTube and everything, right? Like the very popular videos is always like Asian guy dating white girl, AMWF, right?
Right.
And it goes into like, why is there such a fixation for white girls, for Asian guys? And the answer really is internalized racism, because I think a lot of us have been in this journey, right? You grow up as an Asian guy, you're either bullied because of your race, or you feel disadvantaged because of your race. And then when you go out there and encounter different people, again, that sense of feeling inferior sticks with you. So in a way, because we are in a primarily American society, to be able to date an American woman is almost seen as like a status thing. Almost like, if I can accomplish
Getting a Porsche or something.
yeah, and because it's harder for Asian guys to date outside of their race, specifically white women, right? It's almost like, because it's even more disadvantaged for me, and I can get a woman like that despite all the disadvantages. It's very validating, especially if you grow up with like a lot of emotional wounds around your race and feeling inferior. And also, let's be honest, like Asian like parent upbringings, right? Like it's very strict in general, so they're not very good at fostering a healthy self-esteem. So I think this is why a lot of Asian guys chase the whole white girl thing. I mean, let's be honest, like you see it on Facebook, on Instagram, that shit like really sells, right? You have the Asian dating coaches that post pictures of themselves with like hot white girls, right? Because it's almost like
True story, by the way.
you could be like me, and for a one time 30-day only offer, right? For $9.99, you can learn all the secrets I have. And I think for a lot of guys, it comes down to this. As Asian guys, we have some trauma or PTSD, or we have a complex around growing up Asian in American society. So this is almost like a way of Asian guys trying to like reclaim their power.
Yeah.
And a lot of Asian guys will lie to themselves. They'll say things like, oh no, I just genuinely find them attractive, which is partially true. But when we see an Asian guy that only dates white girls, and coming from a person that briefly had that phase, there's more at play there. And it's kind of like, bro, don't kid yourself. Like,
Yeah.
there's something there.
Yeah.
Like, why? There's plenty of beautiful Hispanic women, plenty of beautiful mixed women, South Asian women, Black women, Asian women, not only white women. So that's kind of what I think drives it. But, there's a lot of layers to that.
Right. And that's one of the reasons why we want to start this podcast, right? Because growing up as an Asian American in California, it wasn't like, it was obviously a very different experience than if we grew up in like Taiwan or Japan.
Mm-hmm.
There were some identity issues being in this environment that we sometimes didn't even realize that we had. And we kind of wanted to create this podcast. We were debating over whether even to do it for the longest time, for years now. And we're authentic Asians still at our roots with these slippers that I have on here.
Yeah, I'm not wearing shoes right now.
Yeah, but which brings me to my experience. I'll tell a little my story. Similar to Jeremy, and maybe a lot of you guys listening out there, I think Jeremy already knows some of my story. I was kind of a nerdy kid growing up, and thinking back in even middle school and high school, let's just say that Asian kids, Asian boys, weren't exactly known as the coolest. And I think a lot of kids struggle to be cool when you're young, but like don't really see that many Asian kids being cool. And like as I got when I went to high school, I remember there were some cooler Asian kids. But the thing was, I went to like a college preparatory like a semi-private school. So it was kind of nerdy already. We had uniforms and all that. But even still within there, Asians had a more higher population because like at UCLA and at Berkeley, there's a lot more Asians.
Of course.
So there's like a more probability of having cooler Asian kids. But still, I never really felt like I was one of those kids, and I wasn't exactly tall either, or extremely buff or huge, or built extremely handsome. Um, so my confidence was waning, and on top of that, I also had like horrific acne that lasted for years, which I mean you know about.
Yep.
And so I had my typical teenage battles, but on top of that, it was further amplified by being Asian, I think. Because, like you mentioned earlier, uh, a lot of the subconscious programming that I think goes on. And I think with the whole 2020 lockdown, a lot of this has come to light, right? The whole Black Lives Matter, Stop Asian Hate. Like a lot of people are like, oh, like racism does exist. Look at that. And a lot of the minorities are like, yeah, dude, it's been going on forever.
Mm-hmm.
Like, yes. Anyway, so I was in the same cliques, except different. Jerry and I didn't know each other then,
No.
but grew up with a lot of Asian friends and dated a lot of Asian girls. Uh, I wouldn't say a lot, but I tried to have girlfriends here and there. I tried to put myself out there. Um, had some self-esteem, some really bad self-esteem issues that we can talk about in another video and how
Yep.
I experienced that and overcame that. But for me, it was yours was 24. You said, right?
Yeah, I think I was 24 around that time.
Yeah, 24. Mine, um, my first experience dating outside my race was probably 25 or 26. And I wouldn't even really consider, I mean, sort of, I guess. She technically was mixed.
Mm-hmm.
She was German and Japanese.
So Hapa.
She was a Hapa, right? And was Hapa stand for those?
I don't even know. It just means half Asian, half
Half
white.
Asian, Pacific, something. I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah, man. Maybe you guys can comment below. We need to get educated on our Asian terminology.
These ignorant
Yeah,
people.
I know.
Anyone can start a podcast nowadays.
Jeez. Just have to be Asian.
Yeah.
And wear slippers. And yeah, so she was Hapa, and I remember. You know what? It's kind of sad to say. And since then, I think our psyches have really changed because it's kind of amazing looking back. But I remember one day we were hanging out and spending time together, and I remember like the room lights were kind of dimmed, and we were in my room, and like I had to use the restroom because we had been like laying down and talking and like giggling.
You guys were just talking.
We were
right?
just
holding
talking,
hands and talking,
holding hands,
reciting
Yeah,
poetry.
we're in our mid-20s. We're mid-20s, right? So
Yeah,
we're reciting poetry.
completely innocent.
Yeah.
Nothing happened.
Just like doing little airplanes with some ice cream. But the lights were pretty dim, and I remember I had to use the restroom. So I was like, oh, sweetheart, I'm going to go use the restroom real quick. So I went to the bathroom and I turned on the lights. And it was kind of sad to say because I remember looking in the mirror and thinking, wow, I look so foreign, like an alien.
Mm-hmm.
And um, it was my first. It's just kind of interesting to think about the unconscious or subconscious, um, like you said, the like what you call it?
I mean, it's self-hate in a way,
yeah.
kind of like you're judging
Internalized
yourself.
racism a little bit, yeah.
Yeah, like, oh, you look foreign, but that was a face that you grew up with all
Right.
your life.
Right, exactly, and because she had more European features because she was mixed,
Mm-hmm.
it almost felt like, I hate to say this because I don't agree with it now, and I see things very differently now. That she was more quote unquote
Good
normal
looking.
or good
Yeah.
looking,
Yeah.
right? And now when I look back on those thoughts, it was like, damn, that was pretty fucked up.
That's self-hate right there.
Yeah, and probably shouldn't be saying that in our first podcast, definitely. But
Yeah, so we'll be publishing this on our channels.
Yeah.
We'll be putting paid ads behind it, putting it on TikTok. all
Yeah.
that good stuff.
If you want the full,
Subscribe
uncensored version,
subscribe to our Patreon.
yeah.
But yeah, so you saw yourself. It's almost like you looked at yourself. You're like, man, I look Asian, or like I look weird, right? Because
Yeah.
I'm Asian, and that was a period where you dated someone that was half white, and how did this story continue? Because obviously it was a journey. It's not like it just stopped there.
Yeah, she eventually moved away, and that's how that relationship ended. We probably go into more details on that some other time. But the point is that um, when I was that age, I wasn't like you. I didn't have like the balls to just go up to somebody and just be like, "That girl's hot. I'm gonna talk to her." It was more of she was a friend of a friend, and we met each other at like a kind of gathering. And for me, it was also like a whoa because well, before all our friends were Asian, they were all Asian,
All
right?
Asian. Yeah.
And I'm sure like maybe some of you watching out there can relate to that.
They have the BMWs, the Acura TSX,
The Mercedes, the
Honda
Toyotas,
Civics. Yeah,
the
exactly.
Lexuses.
Yeah, that one friend with like the rice rocket bumper.
Oh, the Honda Civics and
Yeah.
yeah, the giant mufflers. You weren't Asian unless you got boba, and we had baggy pants. I guess.
Oh man, like Anchor Blue, remember like the baggy ass
Oh.
jeans and spiked hair?
Yeah.
You weren't Asian until you had the spiked
faux
hair.
hawk.
Yeah,
Do we have faux? No,
I mean, I think that was later on, but I think
with the bangs.
yeah, but I remember in high school it was like the spiky hair. We'd get gel from like the 99-cent store.
Oh yeah.
If you guys like this video and topic, please like and subscribe. If there's any other comments that you guys have or any other topic ideas, please leave it down in the comments below. And we'll see you all soon.